Smoke and screams tore through Silver Creek Correctional Facility as flames ripped across the West Wing. Metal doors twisted under the force of desperate prisoners, and the alarms blared with a deafening wail that seemed almost ignored in the chaos. Inmates charged down corridors, some wielding makeshift weapons, while guards tried to regain control but were quickly overwhelmed. Blood stained the cold concrete floors, and panic filled the air like a living thing. Somewhere in the mess hall, Marcus Hill and his crew had barricaded themselves inside, eyes blazing with a mix of fear and triumph. The explosion that shattered the West Wing moments ago had set everything in motion. No one outside knew the full scale of the disaster, and inside, everyone questioned whether they would survive the day. Weeks earlier, the prison had seemed normal. Guards patrolled the halls, prisoners went about their routines, and visitors whispered through the gates, unaware of the tension simmering inside. But Silver Creek was a powder keg. Marcus, tall and wiry with tattoos mapping the streets he once ruled, had spent 5 years inside and knew every weak point. To him, the guard's authority was a facade, one that could be shattered with careful planning. Rumors spread in whispers and notes smuggled between laundry shifts. Unfair punishments, overcrowding, and brutal conditions had created an undercurrent of anger ready to explode. It began with small incidents. A fight in the cafeteria over a spilled tray escalated into a mass brawl. Guards tried to break it up, but the violence spread like wildfire. Prisoners whispered about rebellion, about taking control, and some listened to those words as instructions. Marcus and his closest allies spent months smuggling materials and mapping escape routes. They moved quietly, always under the watchful eyes of the guards, until one morning, they knew it was time. That morning seemed normal. The sun shone over the high walls, the guards checked their posts, and prisoners were escorted to work or school programs. But in Block C, Marcus gave a simple nod to his crew, and the riot began. Doors were slammed, alarms went off, and the facility descended into chaos. Corridors became battlegrounds. Fires started in workshops, smoke filled the air, and terrified prisoners scrambled for cover. Officer Daniel Reed, a 15-year veteran, ducked as a metal rod flew past, narrowly missing his head. Every step revealed a new threat, a swarm of prisoners determined to claim control of the facility. The brawls spread to every corner. Inmates overturned tables, set fire to laundry rooms, and barricaded themselves in offices. The control room went dark as Marcus and his crew sabotaged the security cameras. Guards tried to restore order, but every corridor seemed to breed another fight. The screams of injured prisoners mixed with the metallic scent of blood and smoke, creating a tense symphony of terror and defiance. As the day wore on, Marcus reached the mess hall, where the explosion had originated. Flames licked the walls, smoke choked the air, and the fire roared like a living creature. The guards were cornered, prisoners were barricading exits, and chaos ruled unchecked. In that moment, Marcus realized the sheer magnitude of what they had done. The riot was no longer a plan. It had become a living, breathing force, uncontrollable and consuming. And then, as if the prison itself had decided to punish them, another explosion shook the East Wing, sending debris flying. Dust and smoke filled the hallways, making it almost impossible to see. Guards and prisoners alike froze, unsure where to run, unsure who would survive. Marcus's eyes narrowed as he watched the destruction, knowing that the worst was not over. Silver Creek had erupted in a way no one could imagine, and the aftermath would change lives forever. Flames licked the walls, screams echoed in the distance, and the smoke seemed to stretch endlessly into the sky. Somewhere in the chaos, Marcus Hill smiled, knowing that this was only the beginning. The riot had revealed just how fragile control could be, and the prison, and everyone inside it, would never be the same. The second explosion rolled across Silver Creek like thunder, shaking dust from the ceiling and sending a deep echo through every hallway. Prisoners and guards ducked as lights flickered and smoke drifted in thick waves through the broken windows. The prison yard was covered in debris, and the sky above looked gray and heavy from all the smoke rising from the burning wings. For a moment, both sides froze. No one knew what part of the prison had blown apart this time. No one knew who caused it. And no one knew if the next blast would hit even closer. Officer Daniel Reed stumbled out from behind a wall, coughing and covering his face. He had been trying to reach the east corridor before the blast hit. Now the whole walkway was blocked by broken metal, fallen beams, and flames snapping along the edges. He grabbed his radio, but only static answered. Silver Creek's communication system was completely gone. Reed looked around at the chaos, prisoners running in every direction, officers shouting, smoke filling the hallways, and he felt something he had never felt in 15 years of service: fear that the entire prison might fall apart before anyone from outside could stop it. Marcus Hill, meanwhile, had no intention of stopping. The riot had shifted far beyond the plan he created, but his crew still followed him. They pushed through the smoke-filled hallway, heading toward the west yard where the fences were weaker. Marcus knew the damage in the west wing had cut power to several security doors. If any group had a chance of slipping out or taking control of the yard, it was his. The explosion had frightened many inmates, but to Marcus, it was a sign. A sign that the guards were losing control, and the time to strike was now. Inside the administrative office, a group of guards tried to regroup. Papers, broken glass, and overturned chairs littered the floor. The warden, Karen Walsh, stood with her jacket wrapped around her mouth to block the smoke. She tried to reach state authorities, but the main phone line was down, and backup systems were failing. Her voice shook as she told her officers to stay calm. But deep inside, she knew Silver Creek was facing the worst crisis in its history. And if they didn't regain control soon, the prison wouldn't just be damaged, someone could end up seriously hurt. Back in the yard, the fire trucks and emergency teams outside struggled to approach. Smoke and heat blasted outward from the prison walls, and parts of the fence were unstable. Officers outside shouted instructions, but it was almost impossible to hear anything. A helicopter circled overhead, shining a strong beam of light down on the yard, trying to locate prisoners who were trying to escape through shadows and broken corners of the fence. Marcus and his crew reached the yard just as the helicopter light swept across it. They ducked behind a pile of broken benches and watched the fence shake violently from earlier explosions. One of Marcus's crew members, Tyler Grant, pointed toward the far corner where the metal fence looked warped. "That's it. That's where we go," he whispered. Marcus didn't answer. His eyes stayed fixed on the damaged fence. He knew reaching it would not be simple. Officers were closing in from one side. Other groups of prisoners were already running wild across the yard. And every second, the smoke grew thicker. Officer Reed exited the building and stepped into the yard just in time to see Marcus and his crew sprinting toward the damaged corner. Adrenaline pushed him forward. He didn't know if they were trying to escape or take control of the yard, but he couldn't let them reach that fence. He shouted for them to stop. The sound barely traveled over the helicopter blades and screaming alarms. Marcus heard Reed's voice but didn't slow down. His crew followed close behind him, their footsteps pounding against the concrete. The helicopter lights swept across the yard again, landing directly on Marcus. For a moment, he froze in the bright beam. Reed seized the chance and ran toward the group, waving for backup even though he wasn't sure anyone could hear him. Before he could reach them, a shout came from the far tower. Officers yelled for everyone to get down. The yard filled with bright, flashing lights. The helicopter dropped lower, its spotlights steady and blinding. Prisoners scattered in panic. Marcus looked at the fence again. It was right there, just a few feet away. Freedom, or something like it, waited on the other side. But then the ground shook. A section of the old west wall, weakened by the explosions, gave a deep rumble. Reed looked up just in time to see the huge structure tilt forward. Dust burst from its cracks. The prisoners near the wall screamed and ran as fast as they could. Marcus turned toward the sound, eyes wide. And with a thunderous crash, the entire wall began to collapse, sending everyone running as the story of Silver Creek's darkest day reached its final, shocking turning point.